The red carpet whispers. The night was glowing with flashes of cameras. It was the kind of night where every sequin, every diamond, and every whispered word could set the world on fire. Glen Powell walked down the red carpet in a sleek black tuxedo, smiling confidently, but the sparkle in his eyes carried something heavier. Everyone was watching him, not just because of his new movie, but because of the storm swirling around his personal life. The gossip had been boiling for weeks. Paparazzi had captured him and Sydney Sweeney laughing a little too closely, touching a little too softly on set, and looking at each other in ways that screamed more than co-stars. Fans filled social media with theories, TikToks of slowed down, behind-the-scenes clips, and dramatic edits with captions like, "It's not just acting." But then came the twist. Glen's ex-girlfriend had finally spoken. Her comments were sharp, emotional, and dripping with both heartbreak and warning. She hinted at betrayal, at things unseen, and the press went wild. Every magazine headline screamed about it. Glen Powell's ex speaks out, Sydney Sweeney to blame. On this glamorous night, Glen knew he had to face it. Microphones pointed at him like weapons. A reporter leaned forward and asked the question everyone wanted. "Glen, how do you respond to your ex's comments about Sydney?" The crowd held its breath. Even Sydney, standing a few feet away in a shimmering silver gown, froze. Her diamond earrings sparkled, but her eyes flickered nervously toward him. The moment was too big, too dangerous. Glen's lips curved into a small smile. He adjusted his tie, looked directly at the camera, and said softly, "Sometimes the truth is far more complicated than rumors." The reporters shouted more questions, the paparazzi lights exploded brighter, and Sydney's face revealed the tiniest crack of tension. But Glen walked away calmly, as if leaving a trail of mystery behind him. Backstage, whispers filled the air. His ex was already trending on Twitter, Sydney's fans were fighting with Glen's fans, and Hollywood insiders were predicting this would explode into one of the biggest scandals of the year. But deep inside Glen's calmness, there was a storm, ready to break. The question was, would he defend Sydney? Would he reveal the truth about his ex's painful comments? Or would he stay silent and let the media destroy everything? As the red carpet ended, Glen's phone buzzed with a message that made him stop cold. The sender's name, his ex, and the UI message read, "You know I'm not done talking yet." The night had only just begun, the paparazzi chase. The morning after the red carpet was anything but quiet. The city still carried the glitter of the night before, but the tabloids had already taken the sparkle and twisted it into fire. Every magazine stand screamed with headlines. Glen versus his ex, Sydney in the middle of Hollywood's hottest scandal. Coffee shops buzzed with whispers. Twitter timelines overflowed with edits of Glen's smirk, Sydney's nervous glance, and the mysterious words, "The truth is more complicated than rumors." Fans debated endlessly, dividing into two camps, Team Sydney and Team X. Some called Sydney a homewrecker. Others defended her with passion, pointing out that nothing had ever been proven. But Glen Powell? He stayed silent. That silence only made things worse. By midday, the paparazzi had gathered outside his house in the Hollywood Hills. Dozens of cars lined the street, cameras pointed like weapons at every tinted window. Reporters shouted questions whenever the gates creaked. "Are you still in love with Sydney? Did your ex warn you last night? Are the rumors true?" Inside, Glen sat at his kitchen island, phone in hand, scrolling through messages. Sydney had texted him 3 times. Her words were short but emotional. "This is getting bad. Do you want me to say something? We need to talk." But before he could reply, his phone rang. It was his manager, the voice on the other, and was sharp, fast, and serious. "Glen, you need to be careful. Your ex is doing interviews. She's not holding back this time. She's talking about you, about Sydney, about secrets no one knows." His chest tightened. He knew his ex could be dramatic, but this was different. She wasn't just hurt. She was ready to burn everything down. The manager continued, "If she goes on live television, this story won't just be gossip. It'll be a war. You need to make a move." Just then, his phone vibrated again. A notification, a video. The ex had just been spotted outside a Beverly Hills cafe. Paparazzi swarmed her as she stepped out of a black SUV, hair perfectly styled, sunglasses hiding her eyes. She didn't run. She didn't hide. Instead, she smirked at the cameras, tilted her head, and dropped a single line that would set Hollywood spinning. People don't always cheat with their lips. Sometimes, it starts with their eyes. The clip exploded across Instagram and TikTok within minutes. Millions of views, millions of comments. Fans were screaming, "Is she accusing Glen and Sydney of emotional cheating? This is proof! Sydney broke the girl code." By afternoon, Sydney couldn't stay silent anymore. She was spotted outside a luxury studio in West Hollywood, wearing oversized sunglasses and an elegant beige trench coat. Paparazzi chased her across the parking lot, cameras flashing wildly. She kept her head low, lips pressed tight, but one reporter's voice cut through the chaos. "Sydney, did you fall for Glen while he was still with his ex?" She froze for a moment. Her fingers gripped her handbag tightly. The world seemed to stop, waiting for her to speak. Finally, she whispered, "People think they know everything, but they don't." It wasn't a denial. It wasn't confirmation. It was fuel for the fire. That night, Glen couldn't hide anymore. He put on a hoodie, sunglasses, and tried to slip out through the back gate. But the paparazzi caught him anyway. The cameras followed his car down Sunset Boulevard, weaving through traffic like a chase scene from a movie. At a red light, one photographer leaned dangerously out of a car window shouting, "Glen, did you betray your ex with Sydney?" His jaw clenched. He stared straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel. For a second, it looked like he wouldn't answer. But then, almost under his breath, he said 4 words. "You don't know her." The clip went viral before he even got home. TikTok users replayed it, slowed it down, added dramatic music. Fans debated. Was he defending Sydney? Was he protecting his ex? Or was he simply hiding the truth? Back in his dark living room, Glen sat on the edge of the couch, face buried in his hands. His phone lit up again. Another message. This time, it wasn't from Sydney or his manager. It was from a blocked number, and the message read, "You can't hide from me, Glen. The next interview will expose everything." The storm wasn't slowing down. It was only getting louder, the talk show. Bombshell, the city was buzzing like never before. Coffee shops, news anchors, TikTok edits, Twitter threads. Everywhere you looked, people were talking about Glen Powell, his ex, and Sydney Sweeney. By now, the whispers had turned into shouts. The ex wasn't just hinting anymore. She had booked a primetime slot on one of the biggest talk shows in America. The glossy posters went up fast. Exclusive tonight, Glen Powell's ex breaks her silence. The stage was set for drama. The studio night, the cameras panned across the glittering stage, the talk show host smiling brightly at the audience. And then she walked in. Glen's ex, in a stunning red dress that shimmered under the lights. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor, every step a declaration that she was ready to speak her truth. The crowd clapped, but their anticipation was sharper than their applause. They leaned forward, waiting for the moment when secrets would spill. The host wasted no time. "Thank you for joining us tonight. You've been in the headlines nonstop. People are dying to know what's really going on with Glen Powell and Sydney Sweeney." A hush fell over the studio. The ex's lips curled into a soft, knowing smile. She adjusted her hair, took a deep breath, and finally said, "Let's just say, when you love someone, you can feel when they've already left you, even if their body is still in the same room." Gasps echoed across the room. The host leaned in, eyes wide, pushing harder. "Are you saying Glen was unfaithful to you?" The ex didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked directly into the camera, as if speaking to Glen himself. "I'm saying, sometimes you can tell when someone's heart belongs to somebody else, and I think the world has already seen who that somebody is." The crowd erupted. Social media exploded. Clips of her words spread like wildfire, looping endlessly on Instagram reels and Twitter threads. Back in Hollywood, Glen watched the interview from his living room. The glow of the TV lit up his face, but his expression was unreadable. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from his manager, his publicist, even close friends, all demanding he respond before the story got completely out of control, and then his phone rang again. Sydney. He hesitated, staring at the name flashing across the screen. He finally answered, his voice low. Hey. On the other end, Sydney sounded shaken. Did you hear what she said? Yes, he replied, rubbing his forehead. She's painting me as if I stole you. Sydney's voice cracked slightly, full of emotion. Glen, I can't take this. My fiancé is asking questions. The studio is panicking. The fans are tearing me apart online. Glen stayed silent. He didn't know what to say. He had always thought his private life could stay private, but now it was a public circus. Finally, Sydney whispered, If you don't clear this up soon, I might lose everything. The paparazzi frenzy. The very next evening, Glen and Sydney were scheduled to attend a luxury gala in Beverly Hills, a glittering night filled with diamonds, champagne, and more paparazzi than stars in the sky. Neither of them could back out. Their attendance had already been confirmed. As the black SUVs rolled up to the red carpet, cameras flashed brighter than lightning. First came Sydney, stepping out in a silver satin gown that hugged her figure perfectly. The crowd gasped at her beauty, but their shouts were sharp. Did you ruin his relationship? Are you really in love with Glen? Sydney kept her head high, though her eyes glistened under the lights. She posed, but every click of the camera felt like a dagger. Then came Glen. In a tailored navy suit, he walked with calm confidence. The crowd erupted again, reporters shouting questions about his ex, about the interview, about Sydney. And then, in the most shocking move of the night, Glen and Sydney stood together for the cameras. The flashbulbs exploded. The crowd roared. For a moment, they looked like Hollywood's most glamorous couple. United, glowing, untouchable. But behind the smiles, both of them were trembling inside. The whisper in the dark as they stepped off the carpet and into the private gala hall. Glen leaned toward Sydney and whispered, "We need to talk after this, in private." Sydney nodded, her hand brushing against his for just a second, a touch the cameras couldn't catch, but the world would have paid millions to see. Inside, the chandeliers sparkled, champagne glasses clinked, and the whispers of the rich and famous filled the air, but all eyes were still on them. Suddenly, Glen's phone buzzed again. Another message, same block number. This one was even darker. "If you two don't tell the truth, I will." His stomach dropped. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, his smile never faltering for the cameras. But inside, he knew the storm was about to get worse. The leaked photos, the Beverly Hills Gala was supposed to be a celebration of art and film, but everyone knew it had become something else entirely. Guests in glittering gowns and designer suits whispered behind jeweled hands, stealing glances at Glen Powell and Sydney Sweeney. The ballroom shimmered under massive chandeliers, golden lights spilling across polished marble floors. Waiters in crisp white jackets carried trays of champagne and caviar, but the real feast was the gossip floating from table to table. "Did you see them holding hands?" One guest whispered. "I heard she broke up with her fiancé already." Another replied, No, he's still in the picture, but not for long." Sydney tried to smile, posing for pictures with sponsors, but every flash felt like a knife. Her fiancé hadn't called her all day, not once. She knew he had seen the interview. She knew he had seen her standing beside Glen on the red carpet. The phone buzzed in. A quiet corner of the gala, Glen's phone vibrated again. He glanced down, his stomach twisting. It wasn't a text this time. It was a push notification from a gossip site. The headline hit him like ice. Exclusive, leaked photos of Glen and Sydney behind the scenes. His hands shook as he opened the article. There they were, grainy but unmistakable. A series of photos from the movie set. Glen and Sydney laughing together in between takes, sitting too close at a lunch table. One picture of her resting her head lightly on his shoulder, the caption screamed betrayal. This wasn't acting. This was real. He quickly turned the screen away, but it was too late. Someone else at the table had already seen it. The whispers spread like wildfire through the ballroom. Eyes followed them everywhere. Sydney's face paled. "Where did they get those?" she whispered. Glen's jaw tightened. "Someone is feeding this. Someone wants to destroy us." Sydney's breaking point an hour later, Sydney slipped into the powder room, escaping the crowd. She leaned against the marble sink, her hands trembling. The whispers, the cameras, the leaked photos, it was too much. Her phone buzzed, a message from her fiancé. She opened it slowly, her breath catching. "We need to talk. Tonight. No more excuses." Her chest tightened. She stared at her reflection, her diamond earrings glittering under the bathroom lights. To the world, she was flawless, untouchable. But inside, she was crumbling. "Is this the price of fame?" she whispered to herself. Glen's dilemma. Meanwhile, Glen was pulled into a quiet hallway by his manager. The man's face was red with panic. "Do you understand what's happening? These photos. This is a PR nightmare. Studios are calling, sponsors are nervous. If you don't control this story, your career could sink." Glen rubbed his forehead. "I didn't leak them. Sydney didn't leak them. Someone is out for blood." His manager lowered his voice. "What if it's her, the ex?" The thought sliced through him. He knew she was angry, but could she really go this far? The messages, the interviews, the carefully timed leaks, it all fit. But if he accused her, publicly, the drama would only explode further. Before Glen could reply, the manager shoved his phone toward him. "You need to see this." On the screen was a new Instagram story from his ex. It was a single picture of a wine glass, half full, sitting on a balcony overlooking the city. And the caption read, "Truth has a way of spilling over." The gala. Twist as the night continued, the tension thickened. Reporters outside the gala had already caught wind of the leaked photos. Paparazzi pushed against the barricades, screaming questions, their voices carrying into the ballroom. Sydney rejoined Glen, her face composed but her eyes stormy. "We can't keep pretending. The world already thinks we're guilty." Before Glen could respond, a hush fell over the room. A guest had walked in late, someone unexpected. It was Sydney's fiancé. Dressed in a sharp black suit, he moved through the ballroom with a cool, unreadable expression. Cameras immediately swiveled, guests gasped, and whispers surged like a tidal wave. He walked straight toward Sydney and Glen. The air froze as the three of them stood in a tense triangle, the world watching. The fiancé leaned close to Sydney, his voice low but sharp enough for Glen to hear. "So, is this where you tell me the truth?" Sydney's lips parted but no words came out. Glen's fists clenched at his sides. The crowd waited, breathless. And then, from somewhere in the distance, a phone chimed loudly. Guests looked around until they realized it was the fiancé's phone. He checked the screen, his face hardening. A new message. A photo. It was another. Leaked picture. This one even worse. Sydney and Glen standing together in a trailer, their faces inches apart, about to kiss. The fiancé's eyes burned as he lifted the phone for both of them to see. "Explain this." The ballroom spun into chaos. The public confrontation. The gala had turned into a battlefield. The chandeliers still glittered, the champagne still flowed, but no one was paying attention to the luxury anymore. Every eye was locked on Glen, Sydney, and her fiancé. The leaked photo glowed from the fiancé's phone like a piece of damning evidence. Sydney's face was pale, her hand trembling as she stared at the picture. Glen's jaw was tight, but his eyes burned with frustration. And the fiancé, his voice cut through the heavy silence like a blade. "Tell me this isn't real," he said. The crowd leaned in closer. Phones were pulled out discreetly, recording every word, every glance. If this exploded here, it wouldn't. Just be whispers in a ballroom. It would be global news within minutes. Sydney's lips trembled. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. The fiancé laughed bitterly. "That's the oldest line in the book. Do you think the world will believe you? Do you think I believe you?" He turned the phone toward Glen. "And you? You were my friend. You knew she was engaged. And this," he tapped the screen, "is what you do behind closed doors?" The crowd's splits gasps filled the ballroom. Some guests whispered, "It's true." They betrayed him. Others shook their heads, saying, "No, this is just Hollywood drama. Photos can be twisted." Sydney's eyes filled with tears, but she stood tall, refusing to crumble in front of the world. "You don't understand," she said firmly. "That photo was taken out of context. It was during rehearsals. It wasn't what you think?" But the fiancé wasn't convinced. His voice grew sharper. "Rehearsals don't look like that, Sydney. That's not acting. That's real." The tension crackled like electricity. Glen finally stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "Enough. Don't put this all on her. If you want someone to blame, blame me. I was the one who got too close." The room erupted again. Sydney's head snapped toward him, her eyes wide with shock. The fiancé clenched his fists, his face turning red. And the crowd? They ate it up, every second, every word, cameras rolling. The paparazzi outside could hear the shouting through the ballroom doors. Security tried to hold the line, but soon reporters were slipping inside, cameras raised. The confrontation was no longer private. It was live. Within minutes, gossip blogs streamed shaky videos of the scene. Twitter exploded. Sydney's fiancé confronts Glen Powell at gala. He admitted getting too close. This is confirmation. This scandal is bigger than Bennifer, bigger than Brangelina. The glamorous gala had transformed into a circus, and Glen and Sydney were at the center of the ring. Sydney's breaking point, tears threatened to spill, but Sydney forced herself to stay strong. She turned to her fiancé, her voice trembling, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "I never wanted this. I never wanted any of this. You think I asked for rumors, for cameras chasing me, for strangers dissecting my every move?" Her fiancé shook his head. "You didn't have to ask for it, you let it happen." Sydney's chest heaved. She glanced at Glen, then back at the fiancé. "Do you want the truth?" "Fine. The truth is, I care about him. I care about Glen. But that doesn't mean I betrayed you." Gasps echoed again, louder this time. The crowd couldn't believe what they were hearing. Glen froze. The fiancé's face turned ashen. Sydney had spoken words that couldn't be taken back. The walkout. The fiancé's hand dropped to his side, his phone slipping slightly from his grip. His voice was soft, broken. "You could have just told me." Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the ballroom. Cameras chased him, flashes popping like fireworks. The doors slammed behind him, leaving a silence heavier than gold. Sydney stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt naked, exposed, every secret laid bare under the glittering lights. Glen stepped closer, his voice quiet but firm. "You didn't have to say that here, in front of everyone." Sydney wiped a tear from her cheek. "I couldn't lie anymore." But before Glen could respond, his phone buzzed again. Another message from the blocked number. He opened it quickly, shielding the screen. It wasn't text this time. It was a video. A video of him and Sydney, alone in a trailer. Laughing, leaning closer, whispering something the camera didn't catch. Then, the clip ended abruptly. Right before a kiss, the caption read, "Next drop goes public tomorrow." Glen's blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this wasn't finished. They were just getting started. The final reveal. The world didn't sleep that night. The leaked video clip, sent to Glen's phone by the mysterious blocked number, was already in the hands of gossip sites. Within hours, headlines exploded. Leaked video shows Glen and Sydney alone in trailer, the moment before a kiss. Sydney's fiancé walks out of gala, engagement over. Hollywood's golden pair or Hollywood's biggest scandal? On TikTok, fans replayed the clip with dramatic music, pausing at the exact second Glen leaned in toward Sydney. Edits labeled them soulmates, while others wrote captions like, "Cheaters caught on camera." The world had already decided the verdict. The silence before the storm by morning, Glen's home in the Hollywood Hills was surrounded by paparazzi. Helicopters hovered above. Reporters screamed his name. Sydney, meanwhile, locked herself inside her West Hollywood apartment, blinds closed, her phone buzzing with thousands of notifications. But the most important call wasn't from a fan, or a studio, or even her fiancé. It was from Glen, Her hands trembled as she answered. His voice was low, steady. We can't let them control the story anymore. We need to speak, together. Sydney hesitated, her chest tight. If we do this, there's no going back. People will hate us. My engagement is over. Your ex will destroy you. Glen's tone hardened. They're already trying, but if we stay silent, they win. If we speak, at least we choose the truth. The press conference by afternoon, a press conference was announced. The world stopped. Reporters rushed to Beverly Hills, cameras ready, social media feeds counting down the seconds. The stage was set in a glittering hotel ballroom, a long table with microphones, dozens of cameras, bright lights, and 2 empty chairs. Finally, Glen Powell walked in, dressed in a black suit. Sydney Sweeney followed, radiant in a white silk blouse, her hair loose, her face bare of heavy makeup. Together they sat down, facing the storm. The room exploded with questions. Are you in love? Did Sydney cheat on her fiancé? Is Glen lying about his ex? Glen raised his hand, silencing the crowd. His voice was calm but filled with steel. This is the truth. Sydney and I became close while filming. Too close, maybe. But it was never an affair. We never betrayed anyone. What you've seen are moments twisted, edited, and leaked to destroy us. Sydney leaned forward, her voice trembling but clear. I loved my fiancé. I still respect him. But what I feel for... Glen, I can't hide it anymore. This isn't a scandal, it's real. Gasps filled the room. Reporters typed furiously. The headlines practically wrote themselves. The twist suddenly, one reporter stood up, holding a phone. If you're telling the truth, then who's behind the leaks? Who's sending the videos? The question cut through the room like lightning. Glen hesitated. His mind flashed to the messages, the captions, the timing. He took a deep breath. We don't know, but we think it's personal, someone close. And then, like fate itself, the doors of the ballroom opened. In walked Glen's ex. The cameras swung instantly, the room erupting in chaos. She looked flawless, dressed in a sleek black dress, her lips curved in a calm smile. She didn't rush, didn't stumble. She walked straight to the front, facing Glen and Sydney. Do you really want the truth? She asked, her voice carrying across the ballroom. The crowd went silent. She pulled out her phone, holding it high. I'm not the one leaking your videos, but I know who is. The real culprit. The ex pressed play. A recording echoed through the speakers. A voice message. The voice was male, sharp and familiar. It wasn't hers. It was Sydney's fiancé. The room gasped. The recording continued. If they think they can humiliate me, I'll bury them. I'll leak everything. The world will hate them before they even know what hit them. Sydney's hands flew to her mouth. Glen's eyes widened in shock. The ex lowered her phone, her expression unreadable. He wanted revenge, she said softly. On both of you. On me, too. Because I walked away first. He wanted to destroy all of us. The ballroom spun into chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed wildly. The narrative had shifted in an instant. Sydney wasn't the villain. Glen wasn't the cheater. The fiancé was the architect of the scandal. The ending, Sydney's chest rose and fell as she whispered, He planned this whole thing? Glen reached over, placing his hand gently over hers. For the first time, she didn't pull away. Facing the cameras, he said firmly, You've all seen the lies. Now you know the truth. We won't let anyone else write our story. The flashes grew brighter, louder, the world watching as Sydney and Glen stood together. The scandal had nearly destroyed them, but it had also forced them to reveal what they had tried so hard to hide. As the press conference ended, one question lingered in every headline, every fan's heart, every whisper in Hollywood. Was this the beginning of Glen and Sydney's great love story, or the start of an even bigger storm?